Today we're taking a look at System Shock 2, the 25th Anniversary Edition from Nightdive and Atari. Now, as I mentioned, this is the 25th Anniversary Edition, which is kind of interesting since it just came out on the 26th of June, and the original edition came out in 1999, which actually makes it 26 years. So I think that, to label it the 25th Anniversary Edition should have come out last year then. But that's just nitpicking. But the story, picks up, I believe, 4 years after the events of the first game. Now, honestly, the only System Shock game I've ever played was in Pinball FX, which I've done in a previous review on, where you're doing the System Shock table based on that. And I loved the table. It had great atmosphere and visuals with it, and it was a lot of fun to play. But never played any of the actual original games. Recently, they came out with the remake of the first one, and now they're here with the sequel. And I've seen side-by-side images of the same scenes, and the graphics improvement is quite substantial. It's not, top of the line by today's standards, but it definitely greatly improved on the original. Now, the story itself, you're basically going back to the same spaceship and dealing with the same AI. And from what I've read, there's another AI that you're also having to fight this time that may or may not have been in the first one. That part I don't know. Because like I said, I've never played them and haven't read the story or anything. But, playing it, my expectations were quite high considering everything I've heard about it as far as the quality of the game. And so going into it, I was expecting something very nostalgic feeling and looking, with something new. And specifically when I say new, I mean something, kind of revolutionary, something mechanic-wise that, wasn't really seen at the time. Now, with as far as I got into the game, the only thing that I could really think of in that regard was kind of the psionic powers that you can develop, that you get to play with a little bit in the tutorial, and as far as like those abilities themselves, I know that the Star Wars Jedi Knight game did something similar with it, and so I don't know if that's necessarily revolutionary at the time that it came out, but I can say that atmospherically, just the general environments, the ambiance, the sounds, the music, it definitely does build a sense of dread. And knowing that there's this rogue AI that's essentially out to kill you, definitely adds to that as well. And the first enemies that I came across, I didn't even see coming. They ended up hitting me in the back and surprised the hell out of me. And so it was actually a really good jump scare when that happened. And from what I understand, the game's not really known for jump scares, more about the overall environment being used to scare you. And so I can tell that, especially for when this came out, and even by today's standards, it does a pretty good job of that. The game itself, is not one that, is going to blow anyone's minds away as far as, being like the scariest game of all time or anything like that, but it definitely does a solid job with the materials that it had at the time and that they used to build from. So it was quite surprising there. Typically when I play a horror game from the late 90s, early 2000s, my expectations are quite low as far as the scare factor is concerned. And, the best examples that I remember would be like the original Resident Evil. And, beyond that, the remakes of Resident Evil, were really the gold standard for me. And so, seeing that this predated a lot of those titles, it definitely, props where props are due. It was a lot scarier than I was expecting, and overall, I thought it was a solid game, and that I could definitely see myself really getting into this and playing for quite a while, and seeing, you know, what else there is to find and explore, and but hopefully, don't end up dying repeatedly, and even with that guy, taking him on, it was quite easy, but that's because I am used to faster games. And now this room that I'm coming up to right now, I end up dying here, and it was quite a surprise. Basically a security system, which I believe you're about to see. But like, I actually was laughing out loud really hard when it happened, just because something so simple, something so basic took me out, and I did not even see it coming at all. And I just thought it was warning lights, and then all of a sudden they just start shooting and I'm dead. But overall, it was a fun game, and definitely worth a try.